Welcome, my 257 subscribers, everyone who doesn't make social media accounts just to hate on one single thing, every Impact champion that was injured and has to relinquish a belt, welcome here, how unfortunate, and also welcome to CM Punk's Instagram account that has been putting out some gold IG stories. Welcome to my review of AEW Dynamite for the March 22nd show. Let's begin. So finally, for the first time in I think a long time, Dynamite had a straight line viewer curve, according to Brandon Thurston. Usually it just goes down, but with Kenny Omega in the main event against Vikingo, who is pretty much an unknown to Americans, they managed to spike up viewers just a little bit. It's like the SmackDown curve. Raw, NXT, usually Dynamite, and usually Rampage. It's always like a descending graph, but this week, Kenny Omega puts the company on his back and gives us a good curve. It just shows how important Kenny is and how you should re-sign him and the Bucks. So yeah, speaking of the Bucks, they get taken out at the start of the show. There's this whole thing about possibly the BCC attacking them, but isn't it obvious? Why not just say it, even as speculation? Just say it once. I like how they don't insult our intelligence by hammering it in, but they should have just said it once. There's also this story beat where Don Callis is just slowly making riffs between Adam Page and Kenny Omega, preventing the reconciliation to happen. He's still pissed about the title match, so he doesn't want them to be friends. And oh yeah, he's doing something with Takeshita, who's reluctant in joining him. But that might be the fourth member of BCC, with Callis. But I don't think he fits that group. But if he gets Takeshita to fit that group, then good. The bad of this segment is that there are plot holes. How do you not have camera footage of this? Unless you plan to show it next week. And double-edged thing with the first thing I said. You could have said the BCC just once. They tried to keep it a mystery. Even if the Young Bucks could have seen their attackers. There's two of them unless they were isolated and attacked one by one. But overall, it was pretty good. So after this is the first match, which is Kip Sabian, The Butcher, and The Blade versus Sting and Darby and Orange Cassidy. So this is a match that's set up from the house show, House Rules, in order to make it matter more than the usual house show. To make it factor into the actual story of the TV show. But this should have been on Rampage. This time here could have been used so much better. This was the last match announced, and I didn't include it in the preview since I didn't know about it yet. If you wanted to give Darby a win, why not just kick off with the World Championship feud? Team him up with Jungle Boy, team him up with Sammy Guevara, whatever. Because this feels just like a side quest for Darby. And it's also just an excuse to put Sting, Darby, and Orange in a match on TV. He's been on TV every week. He's starting to become the next Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, Satnam Singh, and Jeff Jarrett. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. We've seen a lot of Orange. Keep him off of TV for a while. Just like you did this week with Triple J. But the match itself was the usual structure, but it was pretty fun. Darby was the whipping boy who was controlled by the heels mid-match. He doesn't take so many crazy bumps here because this match doesn't have much value. Orange gets the least spotlight out of all the baby faces. It feels like he was just there for the start and he just came out. It's like he was only there to be an inspiration for what Sting does. And as for Sting, Sting is the main feature of the match. He gets the final pin in the end, but he's also the MVP. He carried that team. The man did the Orange Cassidy stuff. And it's awesome to see a veteran not bury it. Sting did the soft kicks. He did the rolls to escape Kip Sabian's diving attacks. He still got it. I'm kind of sad that he's having his last year this year. Maybe one more year would be nice. Or even just sporadic appearances. For the heels, they play fun bad guys. Kip is the most featured. We get to see the most of him and he hits the pin in the end. The Butcher has the best spots, while the Blade is, as usual, the support character. As for the top 3 spots, number 3 is a Scorpion Deathlock, where Sting no-sells the saves that the Butcher and the Blade do. Number 2 is the spot where Sting rolls around the ring to escape Kip's diving attacks. He does it like Orange does, and it's perfect. And as for number 1, it's when the Butcher has Darby in a clover leaf, Darby's trying to get to his corner, but in an awesome display of keep away, the Butcher pulls him back up and hits a powerbomb. This is the best spot of the match. The finish is Kip being isolated in the ring, leaving him open for a Scorpion Death Drop from Sting for the win. It's a run-of-the-mill match, but it is fun. It's like number 3 of the show. TV main event, but it could have been used to build up the World Championship feud. They do a little, but not enough. Like, having Darby look at the Double or Nothing banner is not contributing much. It's a bad WrestleMania thing that, yeah, is kind of disappointing. But thankfully, we have a 4-sided video package building up the Pillar 4-way. And now this progressed the storyline, because each of the pillars state the reason for challenging MJF after they play a recording of last week's encounter. MJF's mic was muted for some reason. This is a bit weird, but what he says is not important. Darby is the true ride or die. He is doing it for AEW. Jack Perry's doing it for his family, and then Sammy Guevara says it is his destiny. And it looks like the path to MJF will involve a lot of like racking up of wins from these guys. So expect to see these guys in like singles matches, tag matches, involving each other, against other people of like each other's factions. So I guess it's not the MJF pattern anymore, since there are 3 dudes challenging him that he can play off against each other. So I'm also expecting that. When the pillars go against each other in singles matches, I want it to be a rock, paper, scissors thing, where one guy just can't beat the other, but he can beat this other guy, and maybe like mini feuds along the way between the contenders. But it should end, if you want to have this main event Double or Nothing, it should end with at least 2 of these guys in the main event scene after 7 weeks, or else you can't have this main event. And it's also like a very sports-based way to deal with this situation, because you just don't get the title shot just because you're in a storyline with me, or just because you hate me that much. Each of the 3 pillars have to earn the title match, and I like it. So after this is the Gun Club versus Top Flight, and I only saw the build through Facebook, like through social media. I saw like that video of where the Gun Club treated Top Flight like a bunch of servants, like a bunch of bellboys. That's where Dante Martin like reverted back to his old promo style. Like he was getting so good in Ring of Honor, but suddenly he pulls it back again. I don't like this match being here, to be honest. I think since you have Top Flight in like a big program in Ring of Honor, the fans already made it known that they don't want ROH in AEW. They want it as like a separate thing. I'm okay with it as long as it doesn't take over the show, but honestly, why have Top Flight here? Like, why not use another team instead that the Guns could just take out in a few minutes? Because Top Flight were being built pretty well in Ring of Honor. And to have them face off and lose against like paper champions, I don't know about that. I think this should have been like FTR's return instead. They should have just beaten a team and then went out. So the match is the usual structure, but the Guns are all heel work. The isolation and the cutting the ring in half, as well as getting the reactions from the crowd, was well done, but they don't just do enough in the ring. They're like the most WWE team in the entire card. They're kind of like FTR in NXT, but without all of the cool wrestling. Because FTR cheated a lot in creative ways, but they had that wrestling talent when they needed it. Top Flight provided the excitement, but nothing happens much. Top spots of the match, number 3 is the Darius offense rush. Number 2 is the Dante hot tag, and number 1 is the nosedive, where Dante adjusts on the fly. Match had fun moments, but it was ultimately overshadowed by what happened next. So yeah, the finish of the match is the Kingdom come out, they attack Darius, as Dante's isolated in the ring for the 310 to Yuma for the win, as boys win. So after this is a promo confrontation between the Guns and FTR, and this is where the Guns shine. Both Colton and Austin can talk on the mic, especially Austin, who does well with the whiny type of talking. And I like that the title match isn't just given to them. Ass boys are also like too much of heels to make them rack up wins. But instead, they take advantage of the working that Dax has been doing on social media He's worked AEW fans into hating him, as well as some WWE fans who want to watch FTR go back, quote unquote, home. It's really smart actually, but it gets to people's anxieties. The Guns don't agree to a match until FTR put their AEW careers on the line. They use the contract speculation in order to build some heat for the match. But how the hell is anyone getting fooled by this? Since for Tony Khan, why the hell would you put FTR in a major feud for the tag team championships if they're leaving? Why have that as the conclusion to the storyline that they've been having? I would love the Nepo babies to win, since I can relate. But come on, guys. Tony Khan is serving FTR to the ass boys on a silver platter. So after this is the Vikingo versus Omega hype package. And it's pretty clever how they explain the whole deal with them is concisely. And it's interspersed with Vikingo's highlights. It's good for the amount of time that they had to build this, but maybe some shots of Vikingo preparing backstage would have been nice. Half and half with Kenny. So after this is the Jade Cargill promo, where Jade uses Mark Sterling in order to put a cease and desist order on Taya Valkyrie. It's a fun sort of concept for a feud, but what sells this one is Jade herself. She cuts a very good promo, since it comes off as a lot more spontaneous. Even Sierra was good in this segment, who will deliver the CND to Taya and have a match with her. It's sort of like a gateway match to Jade. I think Taya's gonna be the one to take the belt. I think she has the size, and I think the wrestling cred to take Jade out. And you can just easily turn her heel as an outsider for when Chris comes back. So yeah, I think Jade is gonna lose this feud. She's gonna go to Japan and get better at wrestling. So yeah, preferably Stardom. Tokyo Joshi Pro would be okay. So after this is Stokely Hathaway versus Hook. So yeah, before Jade's promo ends, she laughs at the announcement of Stokely's debut. And that's kind of disrespectful since they used to be a pair. But it's nice placement to have this here since we get a reaction from one of Stokely's old friends or former friends, which we'll get more of. I think it's just posted on social media where people just laugh at Stokely. Even Serpentico. But as for the match itself, it was pretty goddamn good. It was surprisingly good. From the entrance where the firm is just cheering on Stokely as he's facing them, but when he heads to the ring, they just show their doubt, their worry, and then this happens about 3 times. It's so funny, and this is an underrated feud. So for the match itself, this was perfectly executed short comedy. Because Stokely's plan is to pull off this student thing where he asks for a medical certificate so he won't be cleared to wrestle. But when he hands over the medical certificate that he didn't read beforehand, it was a receipt to Wingstop or whatever that Wings place is called. I don't know, I don't live in America. But the match starts and he just gets destroyed. The Division 1 athlete Hook chases him down and suplexes him on the floor. Stokely's cowardly yells and sick bumps made the match. He even takes one on guardrail. That was so painful. The only time when he gets control is when he hits Hook with the fire extinguisher, but after that, he is squashed. But they prolong it. Hook breaks his pin on purpose, and then a Red Room for the win. And as just a cherry on top, as this is all happening, we get reactions from the firm backstage about how they didn't prepare Stoke for hardcore. They all clinch their jaws, and post-match, Paige challenges Hook, where I think Hook should lose. If anyone should beat Hook, it should be another one of these future prospect guys that you're pushing. Ethan Page should beat Hook. TV main event, and this is my second favorite of the night. It's a fun comedy match of a feud that was just made to die. So after this is Adam Cole's promo. So story time with Adam Cole, baby. It's him teasing his in-ring return, but it's interrupted by Daniel Garcia, of all people, who is in a feud with House of Black, but I don't think they're making it that clear. I think they're moving that whole feud on Rampage, which is not the worst idea. House of Black are very over, as well as most of JAS. I didn't like this at the start, since it's they're forgetting what's the prize. They could have found anyone else to face off against Cole. But Garcia proved me wrong. he cut his best promo. The dude comes out all like fashionable. He says he's a locker room leader, and he lists down all of the high value opponents that he's beaten. So we have like a rule of 3. Starks, Danielson, Brody King. He talks very lispy, he should improve on that, but he successfully makes it sound like he slipped by saying pro wrestler instead of sports entertainer. This got the crowd gasping. This was like moment of the night. But then Adam Cole topped this, or like went even with this, when he says what makes him special is when that bell rings. He puts Danny over and then challenges him for next week. This was some good storytelling. Of course, Adam Cole is gonna win, but I think it leads to nowhere. I don't think Jay White is showing up. Kyle O'Reilly would be cool, but I'm having doubts on that too. I think you should just have him win matches and maybe help out Ricky Starks against the Bullet Club team that Juice Robinson will inevitably bring in. You can put him with Adam Page and Kenny Omega, but I don't think you can put him in the Elite feud, but I think he's too far from that to be put in it. I think what a better move would be to put him in that Ricky Starks versus Juice Robinson feud to like help out Ricky Starks against that Bullet Club team that he will probably bring in, since it's kind of cold. And after reading the Rampage spoilers, nothing much is going to happen anyway, so yeah. Have Adam Cole inject life into that. And who knows, even have him face off against Ricky Starks. That might be like a fun face versus face feud. So yeah, after this is Kenny Omega and Don Callis backstage with some pretty good acting. Callis tries to like form a rift between Omega and Hangman, even more than he already did. He uses the excuse of like keeping focus against Vikingo and pisses off the anti-AEW crowd by saying that Kenny's the best wrestler in the world, which he is. So yeah, simple segment. It's a bridge to connect the first segment with the main event. So after this is Mox versus Stu. So this is a storytelling match where Stu is clearly the underdog. He gets beaten up for most of the match, but it's just 5 minutes of pretty much nothing. I hate it when wrestlers do this, especially in America. Do grappling moves for fuck's sake and not just some heel work, not just some stepping, not just some rest holds. Do submission escapes, do anything. The match only picks up when the comebacks happen, but I think there was a missed chance to do some high spots whenever. This match could have used some. It's the usual structure. It doesn't have as much drama as Uno versus Mox, but it's okay. So top 3 spots of the match. Number 3 is the corkscrew lion salt. Number 2 is the moonsault by Stu to the outside. And then number 1 is the finish by Mox. Avalanche Death Rider for the win. So I like that the Dark Order aren't portrayed as dumb, since they head right into the ring as Stu loses the match. So this prevents Mox from doing the same thing he did with Uno. But what is dumb about this is that later on, we get a segment where BCC just finds Stu isolated, and then they beat his ass. Why have this? You've already established that the Dark Order have Stu's back, they're watching him. But instead, you choose them to be victims of BCC's attack. Honestly, I would have been okay if, BCC attacked Adam Cole. Or, anyone else connected to the Elite. Like Nakazawa, who did not go with the Bucks. That was Cutler. But yeah, I guess the attack itself was pretty good. It's more of just asserting dominance, humiliating your opponent. Hurting him is secondary. The point is to make him feel inferior. And that's what Mox successfully does. Match rating is like a TV main event. Pay-per-view opener. So after this is the short Starks promo that sets up for Rampage. I guess it progresses something by doing that, but we still don't know why Juice attacked him. Honestly, we should have had Starks and Juice do something instead of Orange, Darby, and Sting. You could have had just a 2-minute encounter between these two, anywhere in the stadium. But it seems like this is the feud being forgotten. And that sucks for Starks and Juice. But AEW, come on, please, next week on Dynamite. Since it appears that nothing happens on Rampage, bring in the Bullet Club from Impact. So after this is the QTV segment. And this isn't really much of TMZ, then it is just a Fine Bros React video. It's just about Phoenix losing and none of the jokes hit. The best thing about this is Alfred Kanua's cheese plate, but the rest of the jokes just fell flat. Austin Solo's delivery was not good here. He was much better last week. And you didn't even have RJ City. So yeah, reacting to someone losing, even if it gets eyes on Rampage, is not how you progress a feud. Like, they do this thing where they like insult Wardlow, but they just tell, they don't show. Terrible segment, and I think they should just end the feud with Wardlow. The goal was to give Hobbs the belt, and if you like give it back to Wardlow, like what's the point? Just don't have them face off. Just like forget that this happened. Have Hobbs and QTV do something else. I am okay with the concept, but the delivery was bad this week. Last week it was okay. Third week needs to be good. This wasn't much of anything. So yeah, after this is Sky Blue versus Toni Storm. And why Sky Blue again? She's just like there to make the heels look good. For like straight weeks now. Like you have Riho, you have Willow, you have Britt and Jamie. But instead you put in Sky Blue. Like heat up the feud, put in someone more important. Sky was really good in the match. This might be her like best outing. But you can't just put her out there all the time. And what's with this stupid decision not to have the faces back her up when they know she will be attacked? If it's about like her honor or like her being a babyface, there's a line between bravery and stupidity. Sometimes you just know things are going to happen and you need to like do some prevention. Send in Riho, Willow, and like Jamie, whoever. That would have gotten them TV time, and that would have like added more to the match. To like have people outside, not just against Sky. You could have also like introduced someone. Like Willow killed it with Athena on ROH. Why not bring her in? It just makes the heel team more formidable. As for the match, it's like she's getting up to a Joshi level every week. She's working faster and faster as much as the dudes do. And there's less Divas awkwardness to her movements. Toni Storm, on the other hand, is just much better as a heel. Like just having a British accent automatically makes you a bad guy. And just like the facial expressions, the contempt that she has for people, it's much better than the faces she makes when trying to gain sympathy. The match is of the usual structure. Sky's the underdog that is effective enough to make the match like back and forth at a point. And she gets crowd reactions more than like those matches with Thunder Rosa and like other women last year that were like dead. Near falls here were cool too. That definitely helped with the crowd reactions. Top 2 spots of the match, number 2 is the code blue, and number 1 is, as usual, Toni Storm's hip attack, which looks like it can like take anyone out. It's such like a hard-hitting, legit-looking move that Toni can make look so good. So yeah, my rating for this match is TV undercard, pay-per-view undercard. So after this is the main event, which is Kenny Omega versus Hijo del Vikingo. So this was unquestionably match of the night coming in. And this pulled in the viewers. This saved the show. It's Puro versus Lucha Libre. And as a fan, like back in the day, I always watched for the matches. Even as a kid, I thought the storylines were cringy. That's why I always gravitated to wrestlers like Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio, Shelton Benjamin, and like The Undertaker. People now might view him as like this, like just a big dude who like does psychology, but dude in ring has like the best movesets in the game. And I mean the actual SmackDown versus Raw and like SmackDown games. It was always fun to use The Undertaker. Back then, like I didn't even have like a concept of like storytelling. For me, they were just fighting. And maybe that's why I'm not as obsessed as other people when it comes to like, psychology, storytelling. They're trying to fight each other. Casual fans won't even notice because they already know it's fake. And I didn't know it was fake back then, but I didn't care. I liked the moves and like the feuds that surround them. Back then, like, people just cringed at that. As like a Filipino kid, we remembered more of the moments than the actual beat-for-beat storylines. Remember when The Undertaker got buried by Kane? Yeah, we all cringed at that. Remember when The Undertaker killed Paul Bearer? We thought that was cringe too, like more so. Like my favorite storylines was with the good wrestlers. Chris Benoit's whole run to WrestleMania 20. And that's mostly because I like his matches. Like, we all love the matches. This whole psychology thing just came up when I got older and because of social media. Like, no one gives a shit aside from, like, the nerds of wrestling. That I'm not denying to not be a part of, but, guys, casuals won't notice. And it was proved right here because Kenny managed to maintain the audience. Graph was a flat like in SmackDown. So Kenny here was the slow, hard-hitting heel who goes for the slow, even like early Japanese match pace that he did in New Japan, while Vikingo from the start does all of the moves. I think like he did all of like springboard moves early on. He goes out like a supernova trying to hit Kenny with all of his best shit right away. And the story for me was like Kenny trying to save up his energy. Just like in Puro, that's what happens in their matches in the main events. They save up their energy and then later on in the match, they go all out. Like Kenny's moves here took about like 10 seconds before he does them. 5 to 8 to 10. But it took a long ass time to like set him up. Nothing fast for Kenny, all fast for Vikingo. With this said, Kenny wasn't just a receptacle of like Vikingo's moves. He slowed down the match, but maybe I would have preferred a more Puro style of like having it be gradual. Like, don't have Vikingo do too much right away. Have him do it after Kenny's moment of domination. Because you're like opening Pandora's box. You're taking away the excitement from later on in the match. But Vikingo does top it, so I'm gonna like forgive it to a point. Kenny's selling here was really good. He stayed down for the moves enough. And his face is always like of suffering. And it's always like a struggle to do anything. He also sells his injuries. Vikingo though could do a bit more selling, especially when he's being V-triggered in the face. Like have him be loopy sometimes. Don't have it look like that he's like setting up stuff, because there are moments where it looks like Vikingo's setting up too much and not selling like the damage that Kenny did. Kenny did a bit of waiting around, some when it shouldn't have happened. Like the amount of stuff that got him there wasn't enough to like take him out for that long, to like wait for that long. And also some of his selling is very coincidental, because like one move just like gets him in position for another. Like he just slides onto the table. I think Vikingo should have like dragged him on the floor, threw him on the table, like maybe did some stomps and then do his stuff. But for when it counts, but when it counted the most, when it was the clearest that Kenny was just waiting, it paid off as a counter move. Like the move where, like a diving Hurricane Rana, but Kenny catches him, power bombs him to the floor, and then V-trigger to the face. But the main reason people were watching this was for the spots, and they succeeded with flying colors in that department. Vikingo was breathtaking, and Omega did his fair share, but like much more simple and more like character-based. The moment where he like pulls Vikingo's hair, he looks at the camera, really good spot. So yeah, spots of the match. Honorable mentions. The monkey flip by Kenny to Vikingo on the apron. It looked a bit hokey, but the monkey flip already looks hokey. Just a nice, creative, novel way of like doing it on the hardest part of the ring. The apron. Next is the avalanche powerbomb countered to a Hurricane Rana. And then as for the top 3 spots of the match, number 3 is the springboard dropkick countered into a powerbomb by Omega. Number 2 is the top rope springboard poison Rana. And number 1, again another springboard move, but it's the 630 to Kenny who's on the table outside. It's truly one of the best spots of all time in AEW. And that shit's gonna get Vikingo noticed in like now a world stage. He hit his head on the apron, but he's okay. Heat of the moment. The finish is Vikingo misses a 630. He's V-triggered the hardest all match. One Winged Angel for the win. So this is a pay-per-view main event level match. On the lower side of that, since it has its flaws, it's like not going to be in the top 5 matches of the year, but they succeed in giving us a spectacle. And it's a great in-ring return for Kenny Omega. So post-match is Kenny being attacked by BCC. And then like we get a Hangman Page save. But I understand like the coolness factor of having Hangman drive in the ambulance. But isn't this just like preparing BCC to escape? This was poorly executed, and I think this should have like been shown before the match ends. Like we should have gotten backstage footage of BCC heading into the ring, as well as Hangman Page like watching Dynamite on his phone and driving in like a couple of minutes after that. Because here it looked awkward as hell. It just like warns BCC of Hangman's arrival, and then like they make the most out of their remaining time kicking Kenny's ass. And there was no way that Hangman like could take all of them on. That would be a burial at that point. But yeah, this could have been done better. But after this, when Hangman drives away BCC, this is when this whole thing finally gets into the realm, but not there yet, into a bloodline sort of story. Callis fakes being attacked by Hangman, who has this piece of wood with nail on it. Callis pulls an Eddie Guerrero, and then he drives a further rift between Hangman and Kenny, which was already being built when Paige instead of Kenny went with the Bucks. All of the politicking that Don Callis did. I love the story progression, and this makes me want to watch next week. So yeah, great story progression for what feels like the main event feud, but it's not. So this was a top-heavy Dynamite show with the best TV match of AEW this year. Segments worked, undercard matches could have been better, just use of time to feature as many feuds as you can. Not very efficient. So yeah, thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe for engagement. Share if you don't know me. Hit that bell notification for future videos, and please, watch my shit.